Probably one of the biggest and hardest forms to complete is going to be the statistical data report. At first glance, it can seem a daunting task with rows and rows of data, but if we break the form down, it can actually be quite easy. Let's go ahead and dive into how to complete an NCMS statistical data report. The first thing we need to do is get a copy of the actual form. Within a pipeline safety audit, you'll see an item for a statistical data report. I got an audit pulled up here, and you can see over on the left-hand side, if we navigate over to the statistical data section, that located in the middle of the screen is an option to go ahead and download a copy of the statistical data template. Once you go ahead and get that form downloaded, what you'll see is a copy of the NCMS statistical data report, and I got a copy of that pulled up here on the screen. Let's cover just the top section, which details your company contact information. Now, if I go ahead and click or hover your mouse over each box, you'll see that a tooltip appears. This is going to let you know what specifically needs to be entered into this cell. If you do not see the tooltips, or you are not using Excel, you may need to open a setting to view the tooltips. I'm in Excel right here, but what you can do is go up to the toolbar at the top, select Review, and you can click Show All Comments. We'll go ahead and unclick that, and let's go ahead and we'll talk about, in the top left section here, the general fields that you first have to complete. The first is going to be your company name. The second is going to be any DBA, if applicable, for your company. The third cell is going to be your address, city, state, and zip. Underneath the certifying section, we ask for the name of a certifying official. This would be the person within your company who is completing the form and would be certifying for its authenticity. Located underneath that, we ask for the certifying official's telephone number. Moving on down below, we ask if the form is prepared by somebody other than the certifying official, such as a service agent representative, to go ahead and list their name here. Underneath, the next field is going to be the name of your consortium or third-party administrator, TPA, if applicable. If you do not use one, you can simply leave this cell blank. Moving over onto the right-hand side, we have the first drop-down selection that you need to make, and it is for the report period. If I go ahead and click this, you'll get two options. The first is January 1st through June 30th, and the second is July 1st through December 31st. Clicking out of there, the next section down is to list your federal ID number or business tax ID. This number is required for us to submit information to the federal government on behalf of your hiring client. The next step down is your email address. This field for signature underneath is actually tied over to the certifying official's name. If I go ahead and hop over to the certifying official section and put in my name, once I click out, you'll see that it has a signature now in place. Underneath the signature section is a date certified, and again, it would be the date that this form is certified to submit to NCMS. The next one would be the telephone number of the person preparing this information, and the final field would be your telephone number of your consortium third-party administrator, again, if applicable. If you do not use one, you can simply leave this section blank. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit on how to actually complete the statistical data report. There are two basic subsections to the form. The first section are the areas that you can actually complete. These cells have zeros marked in red. Any area that you can actually type in will have these white cells with the red font. Now, when you change a number from 0, it'll just simply remove that red font. Really, the red areas are just to signify to you that these cells can be changed. The second section are the areas grayed out, like for example, the total number of test results. These areas with a gray background and no red text cannot be changed. If I try, you'll see here that I'm going to go ahead and get an error when I go ahead and try to make a delete. Now, I am in Excel, but if I click on one of these grayed cells and you look up here in my formula bar, it will display the actual formula for the way that this cell is calculated. These grayed cells are actually calculated from other areas in the form, so you don't need to actually complete them. You can also see here in the column for the totals, it is also grayed out. Again, these are calculated as you enter them from other areas within the sheet. So, for example, if I change the number of pipeline employees in the first quarter of the pool to, say, 10, you'll notice that in the total average column, it is now changed. So, the only areas that you need to focus on are the ones in white and with these red zeros. And before you start going through and deleting all of these zeros out, please do not. When you upload the form, it does some basic pre-checks that we'll get into here in just a bit, but one of those checks is looking for a number in each cell. We can't have you putting words or something into these cells that would screw up the system, so they're formatted for numbers only. If you remove these zeros and try to do the upload, it will fail and give you some cryptic notice on parsing errors. Again, we will go over the various areas that you might get into, but for now, please leave these zeros here. Moving on to the next section, we're going to talk about the number of pipeline employees in the pool. So for each quarter, you're going to need to put what the number of pipeline employees for that specific quarter was. There are three basic methods for arriving at this number. You could use the number of employees at the time of your random selection. You can use the number of employees in the pool at the end of the random selection. Or if your pool size fluctuates dramatically during a quarter, you could use a monthly average. Now, after you get your pool sizes reported, the next section that you're going to move to is the specimens verified negative section. Here, you would put the negative tests for each test type that you completed. Now, as I enter numbers here, you're going to see that a few sections start to update. If, say, I go ahead and put a few numbers in here for my randoms in the first quarter, you'll notice on the far right that it has started to calculate my random rate total. So, what we need here is for you to enter all negative drug screens for the corresponding quarter that you'd be completing. Scrolling down to the next sections, we will get to all pertain to positive or non-negative tests and alcohol testing. So really, if all you had were negatives with no alcohol testing, you would be done at this point. If this is the case, you can skip ahead to how to upload and then our discussion on possible errors that you might encounter when you do. Looking back over here on the screen, you're going to see that there's a specimens verified positive results that's in gray and is similar to the total number of test results section that we discussed earlier. Here you can see in each one of the sections below the specimens verified positive results that we have one for each positive test type. So we have one for marijuana, cocaine, and then the other various metabolites. Now, for some sections, you will need to make sure that you report in the correct section for whatever positive your MRO reported to you. If I go ahead and I scroll down, you're going to see another section where we have multiple drug positives. Again, if you have a specific positive for one of these multiple combinations, this is a section where you can go ahead and enter it. And we have this final section for whatever multi-positive that you would like to report that did not fall into these other classifications. The only thing that you need to do is to enter what the multi-positive is in the header section. Scrolling on down further, you'll see that we have similar sections here for adulterated, substituted, refusals, such as shy bladders with no medical explanation, and other various refusal types. We also have a section for canceled tests. Scrolling on down, the next section that we get to is the disposition. What we are asking here is the disposition of all non-negative employees. You can see here this part has two sections, one for the actual positives and the other for the actual refusals. We just need to complete the total number of dispositions as you have actual positives or refusals. So if I just go over here up at the top and I'll go ahead and I'll just put that I had a refusal over here, you'll notice in the refusal section is now updated to 1, and I would need to go ahead and enter one of these three areas for this refused employee, and we'll go ahead and put here that they are no longer with the company and or not hired. Scrolling on down, the next section that we'll get into is alcohol testing. Now, for alcohol testing, we have the same sections that we went over for the drug. You can see here that we have grayed out sections for your numbering of screening and confirmation results. We have the same areas with the red zeros, just like the drug section that we went over. And if we scroll down, you're going to see the non-negative section where you would put any possible non-negative alcohol tests. And you will see that we still have that same disposition section that we went over with on the drugs. And again, the same rules apply. Now, one thing to point out is that this form has no random alcohol section that you will see. This is because the data that we are gathering is for the Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration, or PHMSA, and there is no random alcohol requirement for that mode. You might be submitting us another pool type, like FMCSA, that does, for example, have a random alcohol requirement. But for NCMS reporting purposes, we do not require that information to be placed here. Okay, so now that we've went through the form, let's talk about how to upload the form, and then we'll go through some common errors that you might run into. So if I hop back over to the NCMS website, I'm logged in as a contractor, and I went ahead and opened an online statistical data audit. So over here on the left, right in the middle of the screen, we have this Upload Statistical Data section, and there's some drop-down menus. For the report year, you're going to need to select the report year for which you're going to be submitting us data. I'll go ahead and I'll select 2020. The report period is either going to be a semi-annual or an annual report. I'll go ahead and we'll just click this All Quarters report. After I've done that, you'll notice here that you get the Select File and button. You can click that and we'll go ahead and navigate to where the file would be. I've got some sample forms here on my desk. Let's go ahead and we'll click on this green Submit one. You'll notice now I'm going to get prompted saying that my statistical data report has been successfully imported. And if I scroll down to the Uploaded Files section, you'll see here that my file has now been uploaded. Now, we do have a few validations on the form, so you might get prompted for some answers. Let's try this upload again, but I'm going to select a new form. And now you will see that I have a few questions that I need to go ahead and answer. You'll see here, it'll default to yes, but if I just go ahead and click this Save Answers button, what will end up happening is now I get the prompt stating that my report has been successfully completed. Or maybe there was a problem and you get some errors. Let's go ahead and we're going to try another import. However, I'm going to select another file. And you're going to see I've now got a red notice stating that I've got an error on the form. This one is telling me that my company name is blank. Now, when we started, I talked about the error if you would delete those zeros or if you don't have a number in a cell. I have another report over here. Again, I'm going to go ahead and click this Select File, and I'm going to go ahead and select this one called Delete Zeros. And now I'm going to get another report. It's going to tell me that my average pool size must be greater than 0, but that there was also an error parsing the statistical data report in the uploaded document. It tells me that I need to be only using integer or number values. This error is going to signify to you that one of the cells either does not have a 0 or it has a non-numeric field entered into it. Another issue that you may actually run into is if you don't use the actual model template. If I go ahead and I select File here, and another issue you might have is not using the actual Excel template. You must use the actual Excel file and not say a PDF version or another file type. If I say go back to the file upload part, I'll click in here in this select, and I'm going to go ahead, I tossed in a PDF file here, even of the same file name. I'm going to go ahead and click it. And what you're going to see here is that on the far left, next to the file name, there is a red dot. That red dot signifies that the import has not taken place because you did not use the Excel template. Now, if I click the Remove button and go back over to the Select, and I'll go ahead and I'll select the actual Excel file, what you'll see here is that the import process will go ahead and complete. So, if you see the red dot and not the green dot, the import process will not work and you will need to go back to the actual template file. And this concludes our walkthrough for the Pipeline Safety Statistical Data Report.